We just took red 40 out of our house because we have kids and not toddlers, but we took it out of their diet and ours. And some of the stuff that's colored red is made from beets. So I asked Katie if she liked beets. And then we went down this whole train of how she hates goat cheese.
Get out of here.
That was
so now you know. You're fully up to speed.
Red 40 is a food coloring?
Everything that's red. And it's linked to like some yucky stuff.
I like food
specifically
coloring.
In kids. Showing signs of like behavioral or ADHD, it's not going to give your kids those things, but it's going to make them feel those things, I think. I'm a doctor, so I'm saying all of this from my medical degree, but like hyperactivity and like a sugar high. And so we were like, you know what, we've got enough of that already. Let's just
Dude, my kids eat so much sugar. It's obscene. Just breakfast, lunch, and dinner. They're living off it. They're like hummingbirds.
It's the rite of passage, though. We just try to avoid the red sugar. So there's plenty of other sugar.
It truly is disturbing when I think about it too much, but whatever.
Yeah.
My kids are just eating sugar constantly, looking at screens constantly. And then whenever they ask me for something, I'm like, shut up.
I'm laughing because I think every parent is like, oh, yeah, same. But also talking about poop all the time. It's like the only thing we constantly talk about.
They love talking about poop. And they think farts are so funny. And
they are.
Objectively.
Yes, they are. They haven't
They're
even
not
seen
wrong.
that you can light them on fire yet either. So
shit. Just you wait, kids.
Exactly.
Couple years.
Yeah.
The world will be magic.
Anyway, we really love these conversations.
Where else do you want to go?
Well, we should probably start our podcast episode sometime.
Thought we already did.
Yeah. This will be a good one for our editors to figure out.
Every time I go on a podcast, we start having a great conversation. I love it. And then they're like, well, I should probably hit record. I'm like, what the fuck are we doing here?
That's why we recorded from the get-go.
Yeah.
This is the stuff people want to hear. I honestly think that people prefer to listen to, like, if we ever become the people who start asking you, like, how'd you get started with lettering?
Well, that's always
important.
Useful because I do that too. And it's a safety net and it's a safe place for the interviewer and it's a safe place for the interviewee. You can always go there. And just because we have those kind of conversations a lot doesn't mean that they can't be fresh when you have them. Like when I try and access that stuff, I always try and tell it in a new way or go to some other kind of detail that I haven't talked about before. It's like a personal challenge sort of thing.
That's very wise.
Well, I was noticing this come up a lot in teaching where you're like, God, I'm saying the same fucking thing I've said 100 times. How can I possibly say this in a way that's not going to be totally stale and bland? Because all of our teachers did that without us knowing it at the time. Everything they told us, they had already delivered hundreds of times. For good teachers, at least, it didn't feel like they were doing that. So it's hard, but it makes it more fun, I think, for both people.
I think that's a great response, but I also think that talking about farts is fun too.
Sure. Let's do it.
Yeah. I think a good blend of both is what we're really going for.
What about a good
farts and heart? Farts and heart.
What about a good shit your pants story?
I have one. Yeah.
I shit my pants.
We haven't even introduced you yet.
This is it.
We're here. This
is the introduction.
Should we not tell anyone who you are so that way you can share this story with full secrecy?
Anonymity?
No. Listen.
Are you proud? You're proud.
I'm not proud, but I'm a human being. Okay?
Yeah.
We've all shit our pants at different times in our lives. The one that stands out the most in memory is when it was my first day of being a freshman in high school. And I was so... No. I wasn't at school yet. I was getting ready. I remember I'm late to get in the car. I'm super nervous. You'd already planned your outfit and everything like that. I farted. Turns out I sharted. And I was like, oh no. If that would have happened 5 minutes later, because it was such a short drive to school, that would have been a monumentally bad first day of high school ever.
Well, you got it out.
So luckily, I got it out. But what I had not accounted for was my older brother, who saw the whole thing go down, immediately takes the opportunity when we're rolling up at school to say, "Hey guys, James just shit his pants," and all this stuff. So it's
wow. Welcome to freshman year.
I didn't completely dodge the bullet, but at that time in my life, my brother.
That's what siblings are for.
Yeah, exactly.
My husband peed his pants at school. This was like at 12th grade. No, it was in elementary school, and he was wearing purple, what do you call them? Pants. Purple
corduroy.
Sweatpants. My God.
Sweatpants.
And he got called purple piss pants, and he punched the kid in the stomach. So, purple piss pants.
I have two
That's hurtful.
stories, but I don't know if I should bother.
What do you mean?
Pick the best one, and let's hear it.
No,
when I was in...
Pick the worst one.
Pick the one that happened most recently.
Oh, well, it's not as funny, though. I was
pick
sick.
the funny one.
All right, pick the funny one.
I was sick. Okay.
Yeah, that sounds sad.
It was funny for a second, or, 12 years later. But when I was in elementary school and I peed my pants because I was worried about pulling my pants down all the way, because there was rumors that little boys in the other room, because they were back to back, would like climb up in the ceiling and watch girls pee. Who knows if that was true? What little 3-foot tall boy could, I don't know.
Men are pigs.
So that's the consensus. But I was wearing a vest, one of those zip up Columbia LL Bean, like a fleece, but a vest. And I tried to wrap that around my pants so no one would see.
It's a vest.
Yeah, but it's a vest. There's no arms.
You didn't have the sleeves.
I didn't have the sleeves. So that's where the memory stops for me, is that something happened
out after that.
It was not great. But now I'm a mom, so peeing my pants is like an everyday occurrence.
Well,
we don't have to talk about that one, though.
Pee is just, as a parent, you're like, who cares about pee? It's like the least offensive of all. Even blood, I think, is so much worse than...
That's where I was going to go.
Yeah, because it's so much harder to get out as a stain. It's kind of more... Pee is just like, doesn't even register for me anymore.
We did have a lot of blood this weekend.
What
and
happened?
It's still fresh on my mind. Well,
get into
we
it.
were on the boat tubing. And my husband and my brother-in-law were having the time of their lives. And they were like, let's jump off the boat. Let's jump off the tube. This is so fun. We're having the best time. And they literally collided to the point where they each needed stitches.
God.
It was not great.
Jeez,
it was
they
disgusting.
Hammered?
Not even close.
Really?
Perfectly sober. Kids were on the boat. They weren't going that fast. What they said is that it was poor execution. The jump was poorly executed.
Sounds like it. Were they like, oh, ha, 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 we're going to need stitches? Or were they like, I'm in serious pain right now?
No, they were like, oh, man, that was fun. Let's go to the hospital, though.
Did you go to the hospital?
Yeah, they needed stitches. Like, it was in my brother-in-law's head. Like, his head was gaping open. It was
Your family
horrible.
goes to the ER like an unusual amount.
We're hardcore.
Yeah, you guys are...
Yeah, we're so tough.
Okay. It's not that I want to stop having fun. I want to have all the fun.
Me too.
But I do want people to know who we've got here. Who do we got here?
No, let's save it for the very end, Katie.
Yep.
Okay. So James, would you mind introducing yourself in whatever way you like? It can also be fart related. I don't know. No, tell the people what you do and what they know you from or don't know you from yet.
I used to shit my pants a lot. I mean, every kid did.
Yeah, it's truth.
As an adult, I do it less now, but there are some...
You're on a good trajectory.
I guess, when I was 15, that's the one that kind of stands out most. Shortly after that, I realized that I had pretty low self-esteem, kind of got into lettering, graphic design.
Because you had low self-esteem?
Yeah, pretty much. There is a lot of truth in that. If there are people with low self-esteem and they find a thing that they like and that they're good at and that they get complimented on, they're very quick to make it a core tenet of
Oh
their.
my gosh. You
just hit
you hit something in me just then. I just saw my whole life flash before my eyes.
Yeah, and I don't think my self-esteem was that bad, but I was a teenager, I guess, when I kind of like got my first Mac and taught myself Photoshop and all that stuff. And it was completely an escape, which was great. And little kids are so good at finding the thing that they don't care how cool it is. They're just kind of doing it because they like to do it. And then later on in art school was when I found really specifically what I liked the most. And that was mostly lettering and type design. That's it. So now I have a type foundry.
And what's that foundry called?
It's called Ono Type Company.
Never heard of it.
Oh, you say the company fully out? I've never heard you say that before.
I mean, well, that's the legal.
It's a special
name.
day.
Yeah.
I've actually only ever said Ono Type Co.
I chose it because it rhymed. I wanted it to kind of have a rhythm within it.
It does.
But yeah, the official name is Ono Type Company. I guess I say both. They're kind of equally familiar in my mind. But we mostly say Ono, one word. So it's talk about poor execution, Ilana. This is poorly executed from a brand point of view. So sometimes we're Ono, all caps. Sometimes we're Ono, capitalized, both as 4-letter words. Sometimes we're O, space, no.
That's what I was going to ask. If you're ever O, no.
Yeah, well, that was the reason the name was chosen. Because in type design, you're searching for the bedrock, the foundation of the design. So in the capitals, you want a straight-sided letter, that'd be the capital H, and a round-sided letter, which would be the capital O. In the lowercase, you're looking for the same thing, but it's the lowercase n and the lowercase o. So that's where Ono comes from, is because that's the foundation of a typeface to me, and kind of establishes your spacing, proportions, and weight and width and everything like that.
When did you come up with that? When was the moment that you were like, this is the name of my foundry?
2014. And I had a long list of other names as well. Do you want to hear them?
Yes, please. That's amazing.
Before you tell us them, was there type design as a course at your school?
Yes, there was.
Wow. We didn't have that. We did learn Flash. Oh, you know what? Yeah. We might have learned like the basics of type design, but it was like either not well. You know what? I don't think so. I'm pretty sure I'm just confusing it with all the web classes that were just completely over my head. And Flash was really useful for my everyday life. So
I pulled up the list of names.
Oh my gosh, you have it.
Let's hear them.
I wanted to give a special shout out, if I may, to Rod Cavazos, who was the instructor for that first class at California College of the Arts. And special shout outs to Mark Fox and Angie Wang, two of my graphic design and typography professors that were hell bent on making sure that I took Rod's class, and took me aside many different points during my time in school and said, like, hey, you have to take this class. Hey, you have to take this class. Make sure you don't forget to take this class. And they were really adamant about it, which is so special that someone takes an interest in you.
Yeah.
You know?
Gotta love teachers that give a crap.
They really
it can really like change the course of your life. It's pretty cool.
They have now about hundreds and hundreds of students, which, I don't think I could do that. From the little bit I've taught in just a normal undergrad program, or I taught in a graduate program for a little bit also at the same school. And it's kind of hard to be surrounded by students that don't really love the thing that you teach.
Yep.
I've taught mostly in a certificate program. And so that's a lot easier because there's no requirement that's making them take the course. They just show up because they want to be there. That's a lot easier, probably a lot better.
I was an adjunct professor at the school that I went to, in the program I went to. And I was really fortunate to have a mentor teacher who shared all the curriculum with me and helped me really build the year and show me where I could infuse my own ideas, but really was my rock for that semester. And I think I was 25, maybe 28. And I looked the same age as these students, and they wanted to eat me up alive and spit me back out. Like half of them were like, oh, you seem cool. But the other half were like, I got a C. And I'm like, well, you didn't know what kerning was. This
Well,
is
that
type
seems fair.
101, ma'am. I'm not just going to say it's like not for the faint of heart. Teaching is so challenging. And so when you do find those special gems of a teacher who are going to go that extra mile, game changing.
Shout out to Michelle Wong at the University of North Texas, because when I was in her animation class, I had this really weird, we all had different like clients that we drew out of a hat, and mine was Twinkie. I needed in my animation to do like spinning Twinkies, and she carved out time in her day to like help me green screen twirl Twinkies and like record it. And she was just doing stuff like that all the time. And,
that's so cool.
And I think you also, as a student, have to show that spark. And then they're like, oh my God, I'm going to grab onto it. The right teacher will. And she definitely did that, and some other professors there too.
I love that.
It means a lot. I just think about it to this day, those Twinkies. But yeah, let's hear your alternate names.
Okay, so when I say these names, just imagine everything about Ono is exactly the same, except for the name. So we have the same fonts, same kind of vibe. Everything is exactly the same. And here are the names. And I'm going to say them, and then you quickly rate them on a scale of 1 to 10. 1 being completely unsuccessful, 10 being the most successful. Okay?
All right.
Okay, name number 1, The Spaghetti Factory.
10. Wait, there is a greeting card line that's called Spaghetti and Meatballs, and it's really adorable spaghetti. It has nothing to do with spaghetti. I think she's Italian, and she just wanted to name her greeting card line that.
Right.
10 out of 10.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
where did that come from? Just your heart?
This is disgusting, and I apologize for this deeply. But the Spaghetti Factory is what my friend Ricky Odbert, he's a Michelin star chef now. That's what he calls his butt.
That's what he calls.
He calls his butt the Spaghetti Factory.
Okay.
Isn't that disgusting?
Our podcast is like 50% talking about type and 50% butts. It's disgusting.
It's
a healthy balance.
It's a safe place. We can go anywhere that we need to go.
We can.
Okay.
And we need to go
even to the bathroom.
Name number 2. And I'm not going to do the whole list. I'm taking
just pick out
be here all day.
Yeah.
Okay, name number 2. This one was supposed to contradict itself. It is the American International Type Company.
0.
Okay.
We pass.
The next name is Oh My God Type So Cool.
10 out of 10.
8 to 9, I'd say.
Yeah, I did not choose it.
I love the length of it is part of the joke, which is great. It reminds me of like that movie that was like the woman across the street from the woman in the window. It's got that vibe.
Or like a Sufjan Stevens song title.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It just keeps going. You're like, oh, the women of the Palisades and the wasps of the Chicago.
Palisades. Good word.
I'm pretty sure that's one of his songs. Palisades.
This one I still think it might rate high for me. Tyrannosaurus Text.
Ooh, yeah. I'd say, again, I'm going to go with 8 and 9 again, like somewhere, maybe 8.5.
We're all over.
I mean, I know we could play this game all day, but just from our experience, we have joked about this with our students, but I know so many people get hung up with their name.
Oh,
and the truth is you can make any name work.
Except for the one we did before. Nobody can say it.
But I think you could call your thing the Poopy Diaper Company, and like you'll sell poopy diapers.
No, I know.
The irony
exactly
is
what you're saying.
Great.
And so you can make it work.
I agree. I was at this Mike Giant talk one time, and he was talking about getting approached by the people that were about to start Juxtapose magazine. Mm-hmm. And they're like, we're starting up this magazine. You know, it's about art. We're thinking of calling it Juxtapose. What do you think of the name? And he was like, it doesn't matter what you call it. All that matters is how cool the magazine is. If it is a cool 100%. Magazine, the name will become cool. And if it's a terrible magazine, I think every name essentially starts off terrible. You know, like it's just going to be impossible to find something that everyone would like the name of.
With band names, too, that's like a really good one to think about. And you're like, what am I listening to? Like Animal Collective? Like, what kind of crap is this?
I think Animal Collective is a good band name.
That is a good one. But I can't think of a single other band name.
There's a great dude on TikTok that does good band name, bad band name. And then for when people inevitably disagree with him. He goes into a long spiel about how he doesn't give a toot. They're worth a watch on TikTok. But anyways, names don't matter. I see this stopping people when they want to start up their thing all the time. And it is really, really frustrating, because if you're someone who is used to getting things off the ground, starting projects, there's a lot of things that you have to name. And there's, every typeface we have to name, every kind of podcast episode. If it's not an interview, we have to name that. And the Ono Type School is a name. And
we have faced this as well.
Yeah.
Yes.
Naming
so many
ID
names.
is a big part of it, but you just kind of got to choose something at the end of the day. And some names are home runs and a lot of them aren't. We named a typeface Regrets. I think that's probably one of our worst names for a typeface. And I don't know if the concept was fully realized or totally well executed. And then we've named another typeface Obviously, which I think is one of our best names for a typeface.
But nobody's on your site saying, I'm not going to buy this because I don't like the name.
You know what?
I'm not going to buy this typeface.
I think it helps people sometimes, but the idea or the sort of notion people have about what is a good name for a typeface is a hard thing to hit. We don't want to name typefaces names that sound like typeface names. That's a kind of losing game. You can always just put a lowercase a at the end of a word and anything is going to sound like a font name, like Computura, Desca, or...
But then they're harder to differentiate. When there's a name that sticks and is unique, you're going to remember that typeface when you go to identify it in the wild or think of it for another project. You can also change your name. Yeah. Katie and I know from experience, we're on basically our third business name, because when we started as just a course. And that course has now had 3 names or 2 names.
You can tell by looking at our files and our tags on ConvertKit. It confuses
horrible.
The heck out of us.
It's so confusing. But we changed our business name when we kind of, I guess, merge is the right word, with Good Type. And it's a good thing because nobody could pronounce that name. I have a video.
What was the name?
When Katie and I...
Lumiere. People said Lumiere.
When I said it differently than Katie. And then I recorded my husband and my son saying it at the time, and they also couldn't say it. And it was fine. We could have made it work, but it didn't feel like the good fit.
Our lawyer just said it would be easiest to come up with a name that was not a real name. And so we just tried to mash a bunch of stuff together, and we were like Loom, because it's like weaving community. It wasn't great, but Good Type. Hey,
it's good.
It's
pretty good.
Clean.
Good Type is a good name. Any name that starts with good is going to be a good name. Good Hurts, the audio plugin company, one of my favorite names for anything. Yeah, good works.
You know what people also get hung up on, and we just had this question the other day, is about how to refer to themselves when they're just a one-person business. We've had so many people be like, am I a we? Am I a studio? Are clients going to think I'm too small if I'm just one person and I'm honest
or
about
not
it?
capable?
But I pretend to be this entity, and we're like, no, just be your darn self. What are your thoughts on that?
That's an interesting question. I was kind of curious to hear where you would go in a response to it. So a lot of times now when we're doing our first introductory meeting with a client, we just try and match their size. So if we're talking to like a massive design firm, I feel like it's a comforting thing for them to see 4 faces on our side in the meeting.
Yeah.
And everyone's taking notes and everyone's asking questions, and it feels like a balance. If it's just one person that I know personally, which happens a lot, someone will say like, hey, James, I would love to just get your spiel on making custom typefaces or whatever. I'm not going to pile in everyone in our company, because then that one person was like, whoa, this is a little bit more than what I was asking for or whatever. We try and match who we're talking to, I think.
That's great advice.
But not everyone can do that, because they don't have 4 or 5 people on staff. The interesting thing is not everyone, even though they kind of look like it, not everyone's a full-time employee. I used to just hire people to show up in the meetings who were good at meetings and who were really good at talking to clients. just to hopefully steer the kind of conversation in the right way and ask the right questions. I honestly don't know
so
if that was a good thing. Like, you can hire out anyone hourly, and not everyone is super, super prohibitively expensive.
I think that's such a good tip, first of all. But then I think if you're being hired as a freelancer to come in and fill in a gap at an agency, you're going to be able to match that, because you don't have to worry, basically, is what I'm trying to say.
Sure.
They know that they're hiring you for a one person. They're not expecting to hire an agency. Whereas if they're coming to an agency to do a larger project, that makes so much sense to try and kind of match that energy and match that responsibility. And something that I used to do when I was working for myself as a freelancer, but didn't feel that confident, is I would respond to emails. And I heard Molly Shannon talk about doing this, which made me feel really good. But I had been doing this for years, is that when someone would email me and I wasn't sure if it was a good fit, or if it was like I wanted to get to the bottom of what they were looking for before hopping on a call, I would respond to them as if I was Molly, my quote unquote invisible secretary. And I would say, let me look at Ilana's schedule. Here are some questions I want to ask you, and I'll report that back to Ilana. And it helped my confidence and helped me get the answers I needed, but also made me feel like I was faking it. You know, I was like, And I've talked openly about doing that. And I'm sure some people are like, oh, she was lying. It's fine. It's really no big deal. Even now we have like a discussion between all of the people that we work with. Is like, do we need more than one person on this? Even between Katie and I, would we feel better doing it together? And it's definitely a balance. Some people are perfectly fine working on their own without any backup or support. Yeah. And some people have 100 contractors. So I think that's a really good tip.
It's probably less about how they feel and more about how it makes you feel.
Yes.
If it does
100%.
give you more confidence in that moment, or just puts you at ease or whatever, then by all means, just try it.
I'm definitely all about just authenticity and trying to get comfortable with who you really are and what your business really is. And that comes with time to get that confidence. But I've just tried we feel this way and this is what my team is saying. And I didn't have a team, and I just felt so full of BS and so weird. And I just was like, ugh, I don't like it. So to your point of like, how does it make you feel? If that makes you feel gross, or if it makes you feel really uncomfortable, you don't have to pretend to make it in your industry. I mean, just follow your arrow, man. Follow your arrow.
I learned, I think early on, I thought when I started freelancing, I was like, oh my God, I'm going to grow. I'm going to have employees. I'm going to have a warehouse. And I quickly learned that was not in the cards for me.
What were you going to keep in that warehouse? Oh,
this was when
the products. Yeah.
Yeah,
okay.
product. And I quickly learned that I preferred relying on, maybe it was a control thing, or I just like had a shift where I was like, I'll definitely never have a team that big. And when Katie and I started working together, we truly are like a yin and yang, where we're not doing the same thing, and we truly are adding value to each other's workflow. But I thought that success was going to be having a big studio, having a huge product line, just growth. And I think it took some falling, and it took a ton of learning to realize that was actually not at all what success looked like for me. But success looked like a more flexible schedule, a reliable income in some capacity, but it wasn't just this bigger picture. And that was hard to learn early on.
You got too many growths and you had to get some growths removed.
Wow. That's incredible.
Okay, that one landed.
Yeah, it was just silence.
You had to.
Instant regret.
Anyway, I think it'd be interesting to hear.
I want to come back to the sting though, because that's a big topic for me, because I grew up with
Let's do it.
with 5 older brothers and stuff. And so the sting in those moments was like, I remember it for my entire life. I wanted to say one thing though about things you're uncomfortable doing, because I feel like the we thing, saying we, pretending to be bigger than you are or whatever, giving yourself a company name even when you're one person. For Type Foundry, it might be kind of different because everyone's kind of used to doing that. But the things that you're not comfortable with can change. And they actually change really easily over time. And like before you know it, 4 or 5 years have gone by and you're like, this thing that used to really bug me I don't even care. Like, it doesn't even register for me anymore. And you don't need to be shackled by the limiting belief you had when you were 25 or something like that.
We could unpack that one for sure.
Yeah,
I feel like
here's one that I'm thinking about now and kind of have been. Do I want something on our website that's a pop-up that captures people's email addresses with a 10% off coupon code or something like that?
Mm-hmm.
On one hand, oh God, part of me says the last thing I want my company to be on this planet is some fucking shameless, terrible, spammy, just think of whatever derogatory term you want for a company that's basically good at marketing, you know?
Yeah.
So I haven't done it in the past. But then on the flip side of it is the idea that these people that show up on your website, they like what you're doing. They want to be in the know about. So it's like this scarcity to abundance kind of shift. And
yep.
so
Absolutely.
now I feel like, yeah, we could do that. We could try it. It would probably not be the end of the world like I used to think it was. And really, it's so normal. Probably no one would even give a shit, or it wouldn't change their perception.
I have like a 1,000 things that I need to say because this is where Katie and this is what Katie and I do. But the first thing is, this comes down to, are you looking for growth in your business where you want to generate more, right? Like, are you looking for growth, or is everything great the way it is and we don't need to try another marketing tactic? I think is the first thing. But the second thing is that, would doing that add value to your customers? Yes, because they might get a special offer that helps them purchase a font, or maybe they couldn't have bought it at the price it was at and they need that coupon. And I think that shift from scarcity to abundance is saying, how can I add more value? And so it doesn't have to be this spammy, we're going to show up in your inbox 8 times a month. But what if it's once a month sharing something about you or something about your studio or sharing a sneak peek? And I think there's also so many other tools besides a pop-up that you can use now to build that, whether it's a list or client interactions where you are offering something that you wouldn't typically offer, but you have to be like one step closer than just a follower on social media.
It's really a mindset shift where you decide to believe that you're doing something good, that you're helping people instead of being sleazy and trying to take from them. And that's really hard to get around for anybody. It feels like asking for money in the beginning and you're like stealing something, but you got to turn that on its head and think, I'm improving these people's lives. I'm solving a problem. I'm giving them something that they need. And then it starts to feel less sleazy. It's always going to feel a little bit uncomfortable unless you're just a brick wall of a person. But that's why I love Seth Godin so much. He's like a marketing guru guy, but not in a sleazy way. Like, he's all about how can you make the world a better place. And part of that is getting it in front of people, whatever your product or service is. You can't just make it and sit there. If you actually want to help people and make a difference in their lives in whatever way, big or small, you have to do the marketing and get them to see the thing so that they can implement it into their lives.
And removing that barrier of entry too is like, how can you make it easier for them to access? And so whether it's getting in their DMs and saying, oh, just tell me your email address, I'll send it to you, setting up an automation for that, as opposed to saying, click on this, then click on that, then subscribe to this. And it's like transparency too, with, we're not going to email you this, we're not going to email you that. We have our email list segmented down to as close as we can get so that we're not ever reaching out to someone who's already told us they're not interested in it. And I think that's really helpful. So yeah, I think you can add a pop-up.
I've read the Seth Godin stuff too, a little bit. And I remember reading This Is Marketing, which I think is one of his newer ones, last couple of years or something.
Yeah, it's like a compilation of his other books pretty much.
Yeah, I mean, all these people or anyone in the self-help kind of space, it's a lot of reiterating the same material.
Yeah.
But a huge part of that one is being a genuine community member of the thing that you're into. So with that as the prerequisite, asking for an email address, it's not really putting anyone out, you know, it's basically saying like, hey, you're probably someone that I would want to be friends with, or that I would want to know or to keep in touch with. And maybe this is going to be something that helps you out in your job or makes you look like you're up on new stuff to your boss or whatever it is. And I struggle with the idea that our typefaces are really making the world a better place. I don't know if that's really true, but at least I think they're good enough to exist in the world.
I think
I would like
instead
to see
of
them more.
Yeah, I think instead of saying this huge, colossal goal of making the world a better place, it can be this small goal of making someone smile when they see it, or adding design aesthetic to something, or being unusual and making people think. I've seen a lot lately, and I've been reading a lot lately about, instead of just having this huge life purpose that is just this big thing we need to strive for, why can't we just strive to have fun, be happy, enjoy our day, and like break it down into smaller bits? Because this idea of a life's purpose and like a mission for your entire, like your guiding
North Star,
thank you, can be really overwhelming, especially if you're struggling with any of the barriers of being a human, whether that's diversity or poverty, whatever it is. It's so much to take on, this idea of having this core that you need to work towards every single day. But when you say, I just want to have a really great day today, and here's how I'm going to do that, or I just want to make one person smile today, I think that's a lot more attainable than I want my products to completely turn the world on their head.
But
like, let's just turn it upside down.
On the topic of like following your arrow with this kind of thing and like having a gut check, I think, James, you've done such a great job of marketing on your Instagram without it feeling inauthentic to you. I feel like you let your voice as who you are, goofy, sarcastic, kind of dry. All of that comes through in how you like deliver your reels, or like you give educational bits about the history of typefaces, and you do it in such a fun and approachable way. And while you're not sitting there saying, buy my typeface, regrets, here are its features, here is the glyph palette, you're like still selling in a way, just building that trust and building that community. And then the sales kind of follow that. And I love that you've found your voice in there. If you have anything you want to add about how you kind of came to that or found that voice, I think that would be interesting.
It's funny because now I think I'm more notable as a font marketer than as a type designer. I think this might be a bigger part of my legacy than I kind of intended it to be. But here's where I come from. Basically, the idea that ideas don't matter and execution is everything. So for some of our things, which I call our certified banger series.
Yes.
Stupid. Yeah, that is basically taken. Exactly, that idea is taken from this guy. I think his name is Josh Scott, who runs a guitar pedal company called JHS. Has an incredible, all the guitar world people are so good on YouTube. YouTube is the kind of best platform for that stuff. They're just running circles around type marketing people everywhere you look. I think because they kind of have to. It's this format that kind of lines up to video really well and stuff like that. But his YouTube channel is talking about other people's pedals. And then, lo and behold, people start buying his pedals way, way more. And his business has just absolutely exploded. So it's a win-win of him kind of shedding light on cool stuff. And he loves the history of it. He knows probably way more about guitar pedal history than I'll ever know about type history. But it comes from a genuine place, and it just really works.
Being a good community member, like you were saying.
Yeah, being a genuine community member. If you're someone that is comfortable being on camera, who would have thought that being comfortable on camera and kind of an interest in storytelling would be such viable skills now in the landscape that we're living in? No one was giving like classes on 3-act structure or anything like that in high school. We just weren't learning this sort of thing. Maybe if they knew it was coming, or maybe now, I don't know, they would be more ambitious about teaching this stuff earlier on or something. But it just so happened that I had an okay time learning these skills that are now more heavily weighted than they were in the past. for marketing and stuff. So I think I just kind of got lucky with it. And even like in 2014, when social media was less of a thing for businesses, I was still just kind of like, I don't know, dipping a toe into it and experimenting with different things. I tried a lot of things that didn't work and people did not care about. And I'm very quick to ditch an idea that people don't respond to. If something is not coming out of the gates doing well, I'm like, no problem, on to the next thing. I've always had a really easy time doing that.
Ideas aren't very precious.
I think that's probably something that was beaten out of me in design school.
Yeah, start over the day before it's due after 6 weeks.
Yeah.
I had to do that the first project in freshman foundations. 6 weeks I had to throw out. I mean, it broke, so it was like all on me, but nobody was like, you better start over. But I quickly learned, okay, what are we going to do? And it was fine. It was fine.
It's a good lesson, but ideas are just ideas. And who cares what an idea is? It stings. That sting is very temporary.
Do you have sort of an I don't think you do, but do you feel like you sort of have an alter ego between your business online and your personal self online? Or do those lines really blur for you? Because I know that's also something people struggle with is, should I have 2 accounts? Should I have a business that's not attached to my name? And they really get hung up with this idea of having this whole second world.
I think
it's pretty blurred for Katie and I.
The bigger issue is pointing out the thing as something that you're getting hung up on. As soon as that happens, you're like, okay, I'm looking at this the wrong way because I'm getting hung up. It almost doesn't matter what the problem is if you're worried about public perception of something or a bad name, or it's like, who cares? Just recognize it for what it is, which is some really meaningless thing that you're getting hung up on that you think is super important and a really big deal and does not even register for anyone else.
That's so true.
But with the multiple personas thing, I don't know. I think socially, I'm probably a lot less comfortable and more awkward to talk to in real life or something. Like reading from a script is like, what could be easier than that? You're just reading. Or writing is like, you have multiple attempts at it. You can just keep editing it and making it better and reading through it and saying like, oh, we need a joke here or whatever. So I think I like those sort of processes that are more iterative. Like type design is extremely iterative. Like the number of times that I kind of copy and paste a glyph, just start over from scratch on something and just say like, okay, now I'm going to try it a different way, now a different way. And then you have like 13, 14 versions of a capital A and you're like, okay, I'm starting to kind of get to where I want it to be.
Yeah. I'm with you. I definitely perform best or am in my happy place when I have time and space and can think and process. Because whenever I have to kind of improvise in the moment or brainstorm with the group, I'm terrible at that. I don't know if I'm not putting that on you and saying you
are not, but you are not terrible at that.
Okay, well, it makes me really uncomfortable and I overthink it like crazy. And anytime I open my mouth and contribute to a brainstorm sesh, I'm like, oh my God, this is the biggest moment of my life.
Right. It feels so much more impactful than it really is, like a little bit.
Yes.
But those are the things that we get so stuck on.
I don't feel like I do well under pressure or when I'm caught off guard or if someone is upset with me in real life or something, like I just shut down completely and I'll think of the right thing to say way later. And I'll obsess over it and stuff like that. But no, under pressure, I'm horrible under pressure if I'm not comfortable.
So it makes sense that you hired people to be in your meetings to take some of that pressure off.
Meetings are a pretty safe place for me because I've done it so much.
Oh.
Yeah.
Well, there's the confidence that you wouldn't normally have in that kind of situation just because you've done it a lot.
Yeah, if I'm having a meeting about something that I'm not.
So in your zone of genius, you're comfortable.
My zone of genius.
Let's call it your zone of genius. I know where it's such a stupid phrase.
Is that a popular term?
It's a buzzword.
It's like a girl bossy type word, I think.
Girl boss.
So I wish I could go back and
corporate. It's like a corporate speak.
Okay.
Yeah, I think those are kind of one and the same these days.
Yeah. My zone of genius is very, very small.
I think that's the point. We can't be good at everything.
It's a minute zone and something that 99% of the population doesn't even think or care about. But
you know what my zone of genius is? Eating raw cookie dough and then getting a tummy ache.
That's a good one.
And then pooping. See, we brought it. We brought it all around. There we go.
Woo, that was great. We really brought it home. We wrote about 20 questions for you that were.
Let's do them all.
Well, listen, they're so in depth and about your journey and the things you've learned. We didn't ask you a single one, but let's just do a quick
around them. We were weaving through them, and I like the trajectory.
We were looming. We were.
Oh, nice.
One thing, can I pick one, or did you have one? Okay.
No, go for it.
Before we close up, I really love what's happened with your Wolfpack project, and I think that's so cool. My husband's very into that band too, so I relate on that level, but talk about the importance of passion projects and the importance of finding overlap in the things that you love, and I think you've done a really great job at that. So can you tell people a little bit about what happened there and how that's all played out?
Definitely. I think this is one of my greatest blessings that's ever just kind of naturally unfolded. The way it went down is I got the song on my Discover Weekly on Spotify, and I just that morning felt like I had discovered my new favorite band. Looked it up. They were playing in San Francisco that night. So that was a really coincidental thing. And then me and my former roommate, Natalie, took Molly and went to the show. Now, I'm not here to condone the use of recreational drugs, but I will say that we had a pretty good time at the show. I don't do that anymore. I have children and stuff, but it was like...
Just so you know, when you said you took Molly, I thought you were talking about taking your wife or daughter.
No.
So just to give you where my head's at, I was like, oh, okay.
This was before, because I met my wife very shortly after that. We started dating really shortly after that. So it's like...
So yeah, don't do drugs.
Yeah, don't do drugs. My love for Wolfpack and my love for my wife began pretty much at the same time. It was right as Ono just started too. So it's like all this stuff. Anyways, got obsessed with the band, learned everything I possibly could about them, watched every YouTube video I could, every sort of interview, every live performance, memorized all their songs, and used one of their songs in a time-lapse video of me working on a font. Somehow that got back to Jack, the band leader in Wolfpack, through his friend Rob Stenson. Rob Stenson is the guy who co-founded Goodhertz, the company I mentioned earlier. Anyways, I get a one-sentence email from Jack that said, Ono Wolf collab, monospace, based on the IBM light italic, IBM Selectric typewriter font. And it was the shortest brief. I've heard of a short brief before, but this entire intro, brief, and the entirety of the email was like 2 sentences. And I learned a lot in that moment about kind of how interesting this guy is just with his email alone. And I was like, yes, let's do it. Originally it was going to be like a single style family. Then I was like, let's do 4 weights with italics. And that became Wolf Mono. We didn't ever have a conversation about what to name it. The name was obvious from the beginning. There was never any design feedback. I would send him stuff and he'd be like, yes, looks good. So that's when I learned about the no notes lifestyle and how well that can work for creative collaborations to just
imagine that.
Good. Yeah, imagine. Yeah, exactly. And then after Wolf Mono, I did a bunch of projects with Rob Stenson, who has now become a really good friend and someone that I think is my favorite graphic designer and just an incredible thinker. And I got to do projects with Joe Dart, the bass player in Peck, and Corey Wong. And there's the Wolf band, and then there's all these kind of tangential musicians around it. And it's been the gift that keeps on giving. I love it first and foremost, I'm just a fan of the band. I just really love the music, continue to love everything they put out, and feel extremely blessed to play a very small part in it. I've met a bunch of great people through it. And I don't know, I've said in the past, like the takeaway here is when you love a band, to tell the world, basically, or you love anything, to say like, hey, this is something that I'm interested in, and this is a passion of mine. Of course, your mileage may vary. I don't know that it's going to immediately go that well for anyone else. It's worth a shot, I think. And to also zero in on the things that, if you really like Harry Styles, that's going to be a tough one.
Who doesn't? Right.
You
can't, it's going to be hard to reach him.
If you want to be an actor and you love Harry Styles, that's hard. But if you want to be a type designer and you love this band that's like in 2014, they're relatively small, that's an easier one to win.
A lot lower hanging.
Yeah, well, it's just, you're not dealing with competition in the same way. So there's this conversation that comes up a lot for graphic designers is like, how niche do you want to go with your services?
Right.
For me, I went pretty extremely niche, and I think it's worked out okay. But if I had tried to do more things that I was worse at, or were just bigger pools to be playing in, it just changes the dynamic a lot.
One of our favorite exercises that we do with students around their art business is just making lists of things outside of art and inside art that they are really passionate about, and then trying to mash them up and seeing what happens. And that's doing that exercise is how my husband decided he wanted to be a sound designer for video games. So I think that's a really fun thing to do when you're just like, I feel a little bit flat right now and not impassioned, and I need a little shakeup. What should I do? Try to mash your interests together and see what kind of stew it makes.
Sure. And
I think also the collaborative piece of it too.
Yeah.
Like Katie and I working together, we never thought we'd ever work with other people. And the things we've been able to do together that we didn't expect we could do is just like, send the DM, ask someone if they want to collaborate on a passion piece. People are so much more accessible now than they ever were.
It's not that hard to just kind of reach out and say, hey, it's been a while since I've done that. I've also had it not go super well too. I've reached out to Pendleton Ward, who came up with the cartoon Adventure Time. Have you ever seen Adventure Time? I asked him to do a series of fonts as a collaboration. He was like, sounds cool, but probably not. I was like, okay, no problem.
Was that an end of conversation?
Yeah, that was it.
And the same thing.
At least he was direct or answered.
Yeah, no,
that's true. You got an answer.
He did respond. He wasn't a jerk at all, and it was a no. It was good. It was kind of like a relief, if someone's like not really into it right off the bat, it's going to be painful. So
we've had our fair share of those. And then what happened when you reached out to Harry Styles for your collab?
I like Harry Styles.
Coming soon.
But I would never in a million years.
Yeah, that's not for you.
It's just, we're playing in
He's a cool artist.
Different worlds. Yeah.
Not in the same realm.
There are people that I would just absolutely love to do something with, like more than Harry Styles.
I actually think that's such a good point too, because we find a lot of people saying to us like, well, my dream collab is Target.
Too.
And it's like, is it Target because you want to see your name in something that is so recognizable? Or is it because you genuinely love their core values and every single thing that they make and stand for? And I think it's this growth mentality and this like idea of it being an overnight success. And I love Target. I mean, there's nothing wrong with Target, of course. But would I actually have a better time doing a different project? Very possible, but I have to get to know myself and ask those hard questions before I can have that answer. And I think a lot of people just pick that as shiny penny.
And what's the goal? Going back to your definition of...
The pennies are getting thrown away these days.
But your definition of success, is the goal the end result, or is the goal a cool process? If it's Target, you're going to be in a million meetings. There's going to be a million rounds of revisions. There's going to be
and restrictions.
A million eyes on everything. Getting approval on anything is going to be way harder than if it was something else, like say some tiny line of greeting cards or something. So what do you want? Like the cool deliverable or like an enjoyable creative process.
Boom.
And
Yep.
I think I'm going for the no notes lifestyle.
We need that on our merch. Will you
No
collab with
notes
us?
lifestyle.
I would collab with you if you signed up for the no notes process
Absolutely.
on it. You said, okay.
That's actually,
I love it. Yes.
as someone who hires we've hired someone to do our logo. We've hired someone to do our website. We've worked with the Hood Sister. I mean, we've worked with a ton of other really amazing designers. And the goal for us is also to provide no notes.
No notes.
Yeah.
We don't want to give notes. We want to just trust you to do exactly what you're good at and show us what it should be, because we're graphic designers. We're lettering artists. We chose not to do our own branding because we knew that the Hood Sisters could do it better. Her Hoodspa Designs.
Pretty great clients, I feel like, if I do say so myself.
I hope so. I hope we are.
Are you no notes?
We pretty much. I mean, we'll maybe be like, can you try this one thing? Or did you think about that? But it hardly gets away from their original vision by 2%, 5%.
Yeah.
It's easier being a client as a designer because 90% of the process is picking the right person for the job.
Right. Yeah, and that's tricky too. I feel like when you're in font production, you kind of end up getting some jobs because you're the only one the person knows that makes fonts, you know?
Yeah. It's very niche.
Yeah, that's probably not a great reason to choose anyone's because they're your only hope or whatever.
It's like every single graphic designer's cousin who has asked them to draw a logo or a tattoo or whatever. And you're like, I don't draw portraits, actually. I draw letters. So it's a little different.
There's actually a huge list of things that I'm terrible at. And this falls within that.
It's still growing too. Every day, find something new I suck at.
But no notes is hard.
But hey, you live and you learn.
Yeah, that's true. That's, as they say.
On that note, we're going to have to wrap up this delightful conversation. I'm so sad that it has to end, but hopefully not for forever. Hopefully you'll talk to us again after this.
I love you both.
We can only hope.
And thank you so much for having me on. It's totally fun to talk to you. This is a really fun part of my day. I felt horrible about missing our meeting last week. I still feel bad. Thank you for being so gracious about that. And thank you for all you do. I think you both do a fantastic job. And I'm really honored to be here talking to you.
We think you're pretty cool.
I guess.
You're okay.
Right.
Well, all right.
You'll hear us next time. Bye.
All right. All good things.
Okay.